We are going to get started because I don't have a lot of time. Today we'll be talking about the part of debate that I enjoy the most, which is research. But before we're going to start with a quote from Epictetus. Epictetus was a Stoic philosopher born into slavery, then lived in Rome for a while before he was banished for being a philosopher and lived in Greece the rest of his life, where he wrote most of his commentaries on life. And the quote is that progress is not achieved by luck or by accident, but by working on yourself daily. And so the reason I bring this up is because the only way you will become a better researcher is if you are intentional in what you do on a daily basis. It's easy to kind of just throw a random search term into Google like court clog and expect results to magically pop up that will write your dissent for you. But for you to actually get those results that will build the court clog dissent, you need to know how to search for those links, search for those uniqueness arguments, how to find the articles that will make your file a robust file. So just think about this as we go through the lecture today, because Epictetus will be helpful in reminding you that a lot of these things are really important for becoming a better researcher. So first I want to start with just why we research. The first warrant obviously is competitive incentives. The reason that we want to find the best evidence is to out-research our opponents. Obviously, research substantiates our claims. Without research and evidence to back up our arguments in the round, they won't be treated as true as other arguments in the round. The second is it kind of guides argument strategy. So the reason we decide to cut certain files, make certain arguments, is based in literature. And if you know what the literature says, then you can write better arguments. And the third reason is it acts as a third partner with extra speaking time. So I think it's useful to view research in your cards as like an extra partner in your partnership. And that partner kind of speaks to the judge as they're writing their RFD. So if you have better cards than the other team, then you'll kind of have that extra leg up in their RFD, right? Because as they're reading the cards, those authors are speaking to them. And if you think about research like that and think about card cutting like that, it'll become a lot easier to know like what you want to look for, right? So we'll talk about later kind of like the cards you want to cut, what do you want to value when you're researching. But I think it's useful to think about research in that way. The other reason why I think we research is just educational incentives. So one of the best ways to learn about the topic, which we'll talk about in a second, is just through research. It makes your off the flow 2 hour and 2 hours a lot better because you know all the warrants in the card if you cut them. I have a part of my paradigm that's like it's easy to tell who's cut the cards in the round because you know like who knows the warrants of all their evidence. So it's really, really useful to cut a lot of cards and know kind of the cards you're dealing with just for those final rebuttals. It's also one of the best portable skills in debate. The stuff you learn and how to research is very valuable in school. It makes all like writing assignments that are based in research a lot easier. It'll definitely make all your jobs easier because you know how to find certain articles. It'll make college a lot easier. So that's another huge benefit of research. Also, research can be fun. It really depends on the person, but if you're researching things you enjoy and you kind of like the game of research and tracking down certain arguments and finding articles and getting that like nice like boost of joy, then research can be a really fun activity. So the next thing I want to talk about is my pie chart of topic knowledge. This might be kind of controversial, but this is kind of my opinion on how and where we learn about the topic from. So I think a big portion of that is just lectures from camp, right? So it's kind of like your base level understanding of what the topic is. But an even larger portion of that, in my opinion, is your own research and reading through research. And that portion of the pie chart will only grow as the season continues, right? So like at camp, you have a set of lectures. They introduce you to the basic topics of the year. You know, you have your like intro to patents lecture, you have your innovation lecture. But as the season progresses, when new arguments are introduced to the topic, the way to catch up with that and to keep your topic knowledge up to date is to keep researching, right? So like you aren't gonna have a lecture on like a new counterpoint that's produced in the middle of the year from like a random team, like a process counterpoint. The only way you can start to learn about those files is to research them, right? So like that can mean, yes, just reading their evidence, but also means that you need to do your own research to understand what those arguments are like so that you can beat them. And then the other two parts of the topic knowledge pie chart are debate rounds, which I don't think are that educational, honestly. I've never really learned a lot in debate rounds. I think a lot of what I learn comes before the debate round and when I prep. And also podcasts, which you can check out on our website. Hopefully that increases as the channel grows. Okay, so next I want to talk about general ways to improve in your research. So the first big picture thing is that work is habit. So you really have to remain committed to the goal of becoming a better researcher. This is kind of really what Epictetus was talking about. It's very easy to kind of avoid a new method of researching, avoid a new program if you aren't interested, or if you just think it's too difficult. It's very easy to avoid those things and just do the same research practices over and over again. But if you are willing to kind of habitualize that practice, habitualize using a new software or new program, that can have tremendous benefits down the road. The second thing is that your goal is efficiency. Yes, quantity of cards matters. Yes, quality of cards matter. But if you are not producing those pieces of evidence in an efficient manner, and you're wasting all your time on producing like the best card in the world or producing like the most number of cards you've ever done before, that is not good, right? So your goal should always be efficiency before quantity and quality of cards, right? So like you should always think about quantity and quality, but you should also think about efficiency. And so a lot of today will be focused on how to improve like the efficiency of your card cut. The third thing is maintaining patience. It takes a very long time to kind of habitualize these practices that I talked about before, and so you should be patient with yourself. Today you might, or immediately you might not see results from the stuff you might download today or the stuff you might learn today, but gradually you'll begin to see that your card quality and quantity improves and that your efficiency most importantly improves. And the final thing is you should definitely ask for help. I learned almost all this from other people, and very little of this I learned just from like scrolling on the internet. So definitely pay attention, ask for help. Never be afraid to ask for help. If you can't find a card, you don't understand your assignment, Slack someone who knows more about research than you, Slack someone who gave you the assignment, they'll be able to help you. And also just generally like anyone else you talk to will be able to give you like a second opinion on it, or like a second set of eyes, a second angle of research, which will be really helpful. Okay, so this next thing is a graphic that Truth found. Is on one of his websites, and I think it's very, very interesting, and I'm kind of obsessed with it. So it kind of depicts the benefits of investing in research efficiency. So whether that's like learning a new program, setting up keyboard cutting, but I mean, I just think it's like a great way of describing this. So each column represents the frequency of how often you do that activity. So let's say you cut 5 cards a day, that means you're going to be in this column, right? So if you can shave off 30 seconds from each card you cut, right? So that's like, I don't know, it's like a site creator might shave off 30 seconds, maybe even like a minute. That means you will save 3 days of your life over 5 years, right? Does that make sense? And even like 30 seconds is not a lot, right? So like, let's say after today, you can cut a card 5 minutes faster. Now you've saved 4 weeks over 5 years, right? So that's like about like a high school debate career. Does that make sense? So like it is very, very, very valuable to invest in these things that will make you a much more efficient card cutter, because you can save a ton of time, right? And even like some people will shave off 30 minutes from card cutting, right? Just from cutting a singular card. That gets you like 6 months, right? Over 5 years. It's a lot of time, right? So if you invest in these things, it will really pay off. Yeah. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about are 2 research roadblocks. So these are 2 debate syndromes that I've encountered, and we'll go through kind of ways of resolving them. The first one is burnout. A lot of y'all are familiar with this, like, kind of what burnout is, but some symptoms I've experienced in researching is just kind of being exhausted by my research. It happens to everyone. You can kind of lose your will to cut cards. You get really frustrated. You feel just tired. You like hate your computer. You want to just shut everything and like leave debate forever. You can also feel kind of cynical toward like debate, cynical toward, you know, just like the argument you're researching. Oftentimes I was just angry at debate because I couldn't find something, or I was just like sad that I didn't want to research anymore. The biggest cure for this, I think, is if you're working on an assignment and you get burnt out on it, ask for help, right? So if you ask for someone else to kind of help you develop a new way of researching this assignment, They might give you a new assignment. That's a great way to cure burnout, just like to kind of redirect you, right? Another way is to kind of like try a new angle on that, so that kind of goes with asking for help. So if you kind of like have no luck finding a certain way of writing a process counterpoint, and that's your assignment, and you just are like just fed up with it, then just try a new angle, right? You just gotta reset. Because like if you are burnt out, you are so inefficient in your research that it is not worth doing it at all. Also, sometimes burnout is just like you're just exhausted from a debate entirely. Just like shut your computer down and take a break, right? So like my junior year, after the Glenbrooks, after like a long semester of debate, and I was just like totally burnt out, right? Like Thanksgiving break, I just like did not open my computer at all and just like did not research, right? And then after that, the way I got back into debate was I researched the Aikido K, right? And I never researched critiques, and I never researched anything remotely close to Aikido. But once you like find a new way to get you back interested in debate, it will like kind of cure your burnout, right? So like I was like done cutting like dumb security cooperation NATO key warrants, and I was like, I want to do something fun. And for me, that was the Aikido K, right? So like find things that excite you to get back into the research grind. The second thing is something I experience all the time, and I think there are really easy fixes to it. So it's a debate syndrome that I've termed card cutting attention deficit disorder, which is a type of ADD. Bunton, yeah. So what is CCADD? Basically, it's just like endlessly going down these rabbit holes of random arguments you find, random articles you find. You can never really finish a file. So like, let's say you like are trying to find the court clock is set, and you end up finding this like crazy nuclear war impact, and then you're like, oh wait, like I want to write like answers to Spark file, right? And then now like you're totally distracted, you're not doing your assignment, right? So like the best way to fix this is just to be organized and to kind of save those rabbit holes you're trying to go down for later, right? So we'll talk about a few programs that are really helpful for this. It's also good to have kind of like an ideas document that you just throw in all these links for like random things, so that you don't kind of go down these rabbit holes and waste all your time on like assignments you're not working on, right? Has anyone experienced that? Yes, yeah. I know Rich has. We've talked about this. Okay. So the way that we're going to structure kind of like the process of research is first, the process of file production, excuse me. The first is just like researching, so how to find these articles. The second is how best to process these cards and how to underline, emphasize, that kind of stuff. And the final is organizing files. Research will be the majority of it just because I think it's the most time-consuming process, but there are useful things in the other two. Okay, so research. The first thing I want to say is that I strongly suggest you use Google profiles. So I don't know if y'all are familiar with these. I hope you are. I really hope you are. But I really hope you are familiar with these. You need to separate your non-debate Google use from your debate use, right? So like I have a different Google profile for like every part of my life, right? So like I have my debate email. I do all my debate research on that Google profile. I have different like tabs open for each of them. I have like my college admissions email, my MBA email, my spam email, my personal email. I do like very different things on each of those, right? So like you need to separate all of your different like, workflows, right? Because it makes research a lot easier. There are a few reasons. Is that kind of like you have the debate email just for like debate newsletters, right? So we'll talk about IP newsletters you should sign up for. And if you have a debate email for that, it will go to your debate email. So when you're into debate mode, then everything you see on that account will be related to debate, right? Also helpful for like logins to websites. So like ResearchGate, you should use your like debate email, or like foreign policy, foreign affairs, use your debate email, that kind of stuff. You also like you don't have any tabs open that aren't related to debates, so you aren't distracted by those. Site creator also like shouldn't be on your school assignments. Like it's just so nice to kind of separate everything, right? Also, like all your Chrome extensions will only be on your debate profile, so they won't bother you on the other ones. Also, you should pin your tabs on like each group profile. So like for my debate one, I have like Gmail, Dropbox, ResearchGate, and my like RSS feed. And then my like personal one is like Gmail, calendar, like that kind of stuff. So like you should pin certain tabs that you're going to be using all the time. So the first type of research I want to cover today is passive research. The main reason we use passive research is because it's a lot easier than active research, and there are good ways to let articles come to you. So passively researching, a few ways you can do it. The first one are Google Alerts. I think a lot of y'all are familiar with these. Basically, it has a system send you results from a certain period of time. So like, for example, I have a Google alert for PTAB. So any articles that are published on that use the phrase PTAB will be sent to me. So like, recently these are articles that have popped up. So there's an article about like big tech's abuse of the patent system. That might be something relevant of cutting. I found a ton of articles just from Google Alerts. It keeps kind of like searching for you. If you have like writing a specific file, you want to put it into Google Alerts so you get updates on it, so that the file doesn't become kind of old. If something new happens, you aren't aware of it. Another way is to use ResearchGate. I like ResearchGate a lot. You can sign up with your school, right? So like you're affiliated with MBA, you're like a researcher for the school. It can often get you full text PDFs if you just have an account, which is pretty clutch. Other really useful parts of it, you can follow authors. So like if you have a particular author who writes a lot of stuff in your kind of assignment area, you can follow them and see everything new that they publish. You can request full text, right? So some authors have accounts on ResearchGate, and if you cannot find the full text of the PDF elsewhere, you can send a message to them on ResearchGate, and they'll send you an article. So here are 4 authors who like sent me back articles I've requested. Yeah, so like people are actually like active on this and will respond to your requests. Also, you can jump citations. So I like ResearchGate a lot because it's a pretty easy way to like look at who cited which article, or what article cites other articles, like that kind of stuff.
One thing I'd add to that, by the way, is that the people who publish these articles don't get paid to do that. So you don't ever buy an article. If you're buying an article, you're not supporting an author, you're supporting the company that has decided to publish it, which is also kind of what Raleigh's saying, that people will send articles back to you because people who publish things are very excited about the things that they've written and love when there's cited their interests.
Yeah, and if like you add a little like flair to your message and not just like the auto-generated message, you can be like, I'm really interested in this like specific aspect of your research, like I've been researching it for like debate or whatever, like they'll respond to you. Yeah. The next thing I want to talk about are really simple syndication feeds. So the 2 ones I recommend are InnoReader and Feedly. InnoReader is free. Feedly you have to pay after like for like certain aspects of it. Basically they're like similar to Google Alerts, they're a little more fancy. So you can like choose a topic and then it'll send you articles around that topic. So like I have one for IP this year, and here are like 2 that have popped up recently I think are interesting. So there's like one that's about how AI implicates like patenting, and then there's another one about like copyrighted AI, right? So like these are recent articles that have to do with a topic that are pretty useful for research. And I can show you how to set that up later if you're curious and like how InnoReader works. The next thing are email newsletters. So the best blog I think for IP is a thing called IAM. It's for business executives, and so they'll ask you to like sign up and explain your business to them, but you can just say you're like a researcher for like a school, and they like won't care. But I'll show you kind of what it looks like. Also, there's some Substacks that publish a lot of good articles. Noah Smith always seems to be talking about something related to debate. Matt Iglesias as well. There are a bunch of other Substacks you should follow. Just so you're up to date on those, because a lot of people in debate cut from those 2 authors specifically. Also, like foreign policy and foreign affairs, I'm always on their newsletter just because they're like always publishing a bunch of interesting articles that are relevant for debate. So this is what the IAM newsletter looks like. So this was yesterday. So it was kind of an article about PTAB. Actually, you don't have access to like the article itself, but you just get updates on recent things that have happened. You can find other articles on there. I haven't found any better newsletter. This isn't the best newsletter I've ever found for like a specific topic, but I would still recommend signing up for it. Okay, so core tools of active research. So active research is what you're more familiar with probably. It's like actually going out and finding articles. You should always start with Google. I think it's the best system. The only real downside is that it treats each tab as its own instance of the program, which means it takes up a lot of your like, short-term memory on your computer. You should download the Great Suspender, which basically like shuts down tabs you aren't using, but it keeps them there and you can like reload it. There are a lot of malware versions of that Chrome extension, so don't download other ones. You should follow the link that's on this, which I'll send you after. Ad blockers, you should download all three. They all serve different purposes. They're pretty useful. They make researching a lot easier. You don't have ads popping up everywhere, and you're more protected from viruses if you find a sketchy website with a great article. Hyperlink savers, I think, are really useful. These are my three favorite. I use one tab in Zotero and one in Session Buddy. One tab in Session Buddy will take all the links you have open on your computer and like save them for you, right? So like if I have like let's say like 20 tabs open researching the core clock diss ad, and I'm done with this today, like I need to research something else, I'll come back to it. I click one button, all those tabs are saved, right? So it's no longer using all your memory, you don't have all these tabs open. Yeah. So that can also solve like the Chrome issue. Zotero is used more for academic papers, right? So like if you found some great academic journal that has to do with like nuclear war impacts or something unrelated from your assignment, you can save it in Zotero and then you can organize them based on like what kind of argument they make, right? So I don't use this one as frequently just because I started using it more recently and I'm still getting used to it. But I would recommend it. I think it's pretty useful. Site Creator, also a great service. It basically lets you copy in a text while also copying in a site. And you can customize it to whatever site you want. If you want to know like the MBA formatting, the custom site for that, I can send you that, and then you can paste it in. You should toggle the setting that lets you copy the text with the citation if you click Control-Alt-C. I can show probably all that though. Data publication finder, so carbondate.cs.edu was sadly stopped working, which is kind of like the best way to find the publication date of an article if it doesn't say it on the website. Now there's a Chrome extension that I found that I think works pretty well called Finitimus. I think it usually works. It doesn't work as frequently as carbon dating the web, but I don't know. It's still pretty useful, so I would download that Chrome extension. And make sure when you're downloading things, you follow the link from this presentation, because a lot of these have like other versions that are spam and will be bad for your computer. Okay, so tricks for Google search. I think a lot of y'all are familiar with some of these, but it's useful talking about them. So first we have quotes. So quotes will search for exact phrases, right? So like if you look up the phrase intellectual property in quotations, it will only find articles that use those phrases like together next to each other. So it won't find any articles that say like intellectual and property or whatever, like something like that. So quotes are super helpful for research. And then we have our Boolean operators. So these kind of make use of quotes, but kind of like relate the quotes to each other and like find ways that they're like connected in your searches. So and is the most common one. So if you're trying to update the counterfeiting e-commerce app and you're trying to find updates for the money laundering advantage, you can look up like Shop Safe Act and money laundering, and it will find articles that use those two phrases, right? So like only those two phrases. Or means it can be either phrases. So this is useful if they're like two different ways of referring to a certain thing, right? So like if you're doing updates for the marijuana trademark app, you can look up marijuana or cannabis, and it will find articles that use either phrases, because some authors will only use one phrase for the entire article. So if you just look up marijuana, you might not find an article that only refers to it as cannabis. Around is pretty useful, mainly for definitions and like T interpretations. So if you were trying to find the word protection around definitions, then you'll put like the number of words you want in between them in the parentheses, right? So if I say 5, that means that protection must be within 5 words of definition in the article. Does that make sense? Okay. The hyphen means that it will exclude these phrases. So if you're looking up patents bad arguments and you don't want to keep finding more like pharma patents bad, but you still want to look for like the general theme of patent thickets, then you can look up patent thickets hyphen pharma, hyphen drugs, and it will find articles that do not use pharma or drugs. I've tried this, and it actually does find results that aren't related to pharma, so like useful for patents bad research, I guess. Tilde requires synonyms of a phrase, so if you're looking for stuff that is like a definition of protection, but it doesn't use the word definition, or I mean it can, but it doesn't have to, then you can use that to find like synonyms of definitions, so like refers to, like means, entails, that kind of stuff. Define, defines. Cite, find stuff from a specific site. So if you want to find like an international advantage, you're interested in like what foreign policy is put that symbol there, and then protection, then it will find any words like in between. So like it might say like intellectual property rights protection or something like that. You could also just have a space there. But I never really use that one. And also all these apply to Google Scholar and Google Alerts. Just so you know. Here's an example of one I did the other day. I don't think this is the most elegant search I ever did, but I don't know, I found stuff where it works. Basically, like this is kind of how complicated things can get. This one's not that bad, but just one that I had in my history and threw in here. And these are the results for it, so you can already see kind of like things pop up. So like one of the top says, the concept of protection of intellectual property rights includes the activities of the relevant safeguards provided by law for the recognition and restoration of rights. So you already see stuff that kind of like should like trigger your mind, be like, okay, that's a teen joke right there. This one says like the term protection as like defined in something probably entails like X, Y, or Z. Then we have one that's like the concept of protection entails blah blah blah, right? So like these kind of searches will get you those results, but I don't think it's the most elegant way to do T searches. It's just one that I had in my history recently. Okay. So the ways where you should start with your research, the first thing is just surveying. You need to have a base level understanding of kind of what the controversy area you are researching. Reading one report in full, it kind of lets you not have to read all the intros to other articles you find and just skip to like the conclusions, that kind of stuff. You get to know what's happening in the field. You also need to know the terms of art. So like there are a lot of terms of art on the IP topic, like patent thickets, for example. So if you kind of use those kind of clue words, it will find you articles that kind of know what they're talking about or in the same area you want to find. Like evergreening is another good example. You also want to find the right side of the literature. It's hard to kind of research against the lit, and so if you are researching against it, you want to know that. But if you are on the right side, that's pretty helpful. The final suggestion on where you should start is that you should kind of follow the lit, right? So like if a certain argument isn't writing itself based on the lit, then you should kind of like reorient your approach to it, because it'll be a lot easier to write an argument if the lit kind of agrees with you. Yeah, and you shouldn't try to like force an explanation of an argument if it's not there, because again, that's very inefficient, and efficiency is key. So 3 tips for research. The first one is drill baby drill, which basically means you just want to kind of exhaust the lit base. That means things like jumping from citation to citation to citation. The best way to create a robust file with answers to every argument known to the planet is to drill baby drill. The next thing is the inverted research pyramid, which basically means you want to start broad and narrow. So if you kind of start broad and you have a big cast your net wide and find a bunch of articles about stuff, then it'll like the file will kind of write itself, right? So it'll find answers to like one argument and another argument. But then you kind of need to narrow it, right? You need to recognize this is what my file needs, this is what my assignment needs, and then you need to specifically search for those answers, right? So like that'll mean like more specific Google searches. The final thing is research both sides. It's important for 2 reasons. The first is so that you know what the other side is going to say, so you can write answers to it. The second reason is so you can help your 2-ins or your 2As in case someone else reads the assignment you are reading. The best places to find cards. Google should almost always be your first search. Google Scholar is better for K cards and sometimes T definitions. Sometimes I just like jump into Google Scholar if I'm not finding anything in Google. So just like, I don't know, use both of them. I like a lot of them. The cited by function is pretty cracked in Google Scholar. There's a little button under each result that will say like cited by 7, and that means that like anyone who cites that article will pop up on Google Scholar. I've used this all the time, and I think it's incredibly useful. Lexis and Hein Online are better for law reviews and T interps. You have to have a access to them via some form of subscription. So like everyone who has access to a college library has them. If you do have access to them and you're interested in like using them to search, they have different Boolean operators, especially like Lexis does. So you'll need to like get familiar with those, and I can help you out with that because I use Lexis quite frequently. It also like can cache things that Google can't access, right? So like Google can usually only use like free previews, and they can't search like full articles, so these 2 sources can do that. Congressional Research Service is really good for background reading. I'm sure a lot of y'all have come across that. ResearchGate, great. ResearchGate is not a great first option, but it's sometimes useful, especially for citation jumping. But the takeaway is that Google should be your go-to. So stay on Google, especially for like high school research because you don't have access to like Lexis or anything. The ways you should evaluate whether or not to cut a card. The first thing is that it's conclusive, right? So like there are a ton of articles on the internet that don't say anything, and it makes everyone frustrated, especially me. And you should just not cut those, right? Like you want an article that actually makes an argument. Another thing you would like to look for, you should look for, is if it's comparative, right? So like this is kind of what I talked about earlier, like performing the role of the judge for them, being your third partner in the round. If the card compares two policies and explains why one is superior to another, that is like the gold standard for evidence, right? So like that is the best card to answer a counterclaim, to defend a counterclaim, right? The other one is qualifications. They're not as important, but you should steer clear of cutting cards from undergraduates or like random blogs on the internet where you have no idea where the author came from. But I mean, those things matter less in high school just because, I don't know, people don't care about quals, which is weird. Novelty, a lot of times your files need novel cards, right? So like if you have 20 cards and they're all making the exact same argument with the same warrants, citing the same study, that is not as useful as 3 cards that make very distinct warrants with different studies, right? So like, don't just cut the exact same card over and over again, it's not useful. Some tips to bypass paywalls. So we'll first go over legal methods and then we'll go over methods you should avoid. The first one is emailing authors. So we talked about ResearchGate. It's a good way to connect with authors. You can also just find their email online and email them. The other one is just sending articles to article requests. If you can't find one, send it there. Sonny will probably find it. He's a article finder freak. You can also like just ask someone. Someone will be able to get it if not you. And then here are 4 methods you should avoid using at all costs. So Anna's Archive is a really bad program that combines 2 other bad programs that are lived in Sci-Hub. So you should never go on that website. And if you want to know how specifically to avoid that website, you should ask me. On paywalls, another bad Chrome extension that you should definitely avoid. It does bad things, like gets rid of all paywalls on like websites. There are a lot of bad versions of it that will install malware on your computer, so follow this link to this bad one. Archive.ph is not so bad one, I think. I don't really know. But it's a good way of finding articles on the web that are behind paywalls. Wayback Machine is similar. You just kind of throw in the URL and it might have it, but you should stay away from all these again. Other helpful programs, I have started using this thing called PowerToys, which is really cool. It's kind of like an upgrade for your Windows software. And these are all for Windows because I don't like Macs, and so I'm not going to give you any suggestions. But the 2 things that PowerToys can do is the first one is Fancy Zones, which makes your like split screening software a lot cooler. The second one is this thing that I'm obsessed with now. It's called Text Extractor. So if you click the Windows key, then Shift and T, you can screenshot a portion of your screen, and it will then like OCR that, right? So like if I have like a PDF that I cannot OCR, I just screenshot it, and then I just copy into my Word document, whatever. Like I just click Control. So like Text Extractor is really cool. I would check it out. Other OCR options, I think the Slack function is actually pretty good. You use your phone to like scan in the text, and then you copy it from your Slack. Sometimes it doesn't work that well, but I used to use it. Soda PDF is another one of my favorites. You just like upload the PDF and then it will OCR for you. It's free. I like it a lot. Other software you should download: ebook reader 64-bit. Lets you read EPUBs. I didn't know how to open an EPUB until camp my senior year, which is kind of funny. And then Cameron was like, "You should download this thing." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." So I would download that, it's free. You can also just convert the EPUBs to PDFs, which is, yeah.
One EPUB reader that I like is Vital Source Bookshelf, which I had to get to read textbooks for grad school, but it turns out it's just a good EPUB reader.
Yeah, there are some good ones out there. A lot of like the bad websites I talked about will like give you the article like an EPUB format, so you should be ready to like either convert it or just open it in one of your readers. Converting it sometimes takes a while, which is why I think you should still have the readers available. But
and the
are also like really good for like finding words in the article because you can like have like a list of things on the side of like where it appears. Yeah. Startleback I am obsessed with. It reverts your computer to the Windows 10 layout but keeps the rest of Windows 11. It'll keep asking you to like give them license fee or like give them like a license number because they think that you paid for it. But I don't know, like I just click X every time and it has never like I don't know gotten mad at me, and I've had it for like a year and a half. Arish has also done it, so I think it's fine. But maybe that's a bad software you should stay away from. Yeah, this is what it looks like, right? It's like a lot of you have Windows will see like the bars down here, but that's just like really bad for debate because you want to be able to see all your Word documents and like everything else on your screen. So you want to configure your screen so that it's like optimized for research and optimized for like a background. I can show you the specific like settings I have on my computer if you're curious. Okay, the last thing is doc fetcher, which might have changed my life. I think it did. So it indexes your entire Dropbox. It takes like a number of hours to do, but it's definitely worth it. So it can kind of like search every single file you'll have in your Dropbox. So like if I am looking for like COVID-21 and I just can't find the file that has it, if I just look up COVID-21, then I can find it, right? So like these are like every single file that has COVID in it, and it will sort it by score, which means like the amount of times that file has that word in it. And you can also sort it by like recency. You can also select like which Dropboxes you're looking in. So like I use this all the time for like camp files, right? Like if I need to find a specific card in the camp files, I can just select it on like the search scope bar, and just like search within the camp files. Yeah.
Is doc fetcher better than search application?
I think so. What do you think, Munson?
Better than what?
Search everything?
They're two completely different programs. Everything searches for the title of files.
Yes.
DocFetcher is for the contents.
Yeah.
It's probably for Windows, right?
Yeah, I think so. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't really know anything about Macs, so.
Real quick, the other thing to know about DocFetcher is, so Raleigh said it takes several hours to build the initial index. That is true, but it's not several hours of you actively doing it.
Yes,
It's like
yeah.
set it and forget it. It
Yeah.
just runs.
I think the first time I did it was like during the Barclays Forum Awards ceremony, and I just like had my computer out and it was just indexing my computer because Bunch and Ed told me about it that day, and I just like left it there while I was in the hotel room. Yeah. But I've had to index it like 3 times just from like I got a new computer this summer and like other stuff. So I mean it's not horrible. You can just kind of let it do its thing. Okay, so the next phase, which is a lot shorter, is card cutting. So the first thing I want to talk about is the weapon that you should choose. So your first option is your mouse. Also, trackpad is not an option because everyone hates a trackpad. Do not use a trackpad. It's horrible. It's just like, disgusting.
I only use trackpad. Sorry.
Okay, well, okay, I'm keyboard, then mouse, then trackpad.
Yeah.
Okay, so the mouse is your first option, and your other weapon of choice is your keyboard, okay? So let's go through the pros and cons of each. So the mouse, the pro is that it's easier to learn, and that's it. So if you want an easy thing to learn, just get a mouse. There's not really any other pro. I used to use a mouse when I started researching, but keyboard is so much better. So the things I look for in a mouse, I still use a mouse by the way, so I still think you should get one, just because it's easier to use than a trackpad. And also like I use it for like making blocks, tags, headers, like that kind of stuff. Like I have all these keys binded, but we can talk about that in a second. So the things you should look for are programmable buttons. So a lot of mouses have buttons on the side that you can program to like a specific verbatim function. So mine actually has like 12 buttons, so I just did like all the verbatim functions. Now it's like really easy to use verbatim because you don't have to like use your keyboard for those things and like, you know. The second thing you should look for is battery life. You don't want your mouse to die all the time. Third thing is Bluetooth. I think it's important, but some people don't think it's that necessary. It can reduce the cost a lot if you don't want to buy like a really expensive one. If you just want to get a wired one. These are 2 mouse suggestions. I have one of them is Windows only, but if you follow those links, it'll show you the mouse, and they're both pretty good. I use the Red Dragon one. The keyboard is your other option. The pro is that it is much faster. We're going to watch a demonstration of that in a second. The second pro is that it feels like you're playing a video game, and if you're doing it in class, some teachers might think you're playing a video game because your hands are on the arrow keys. When I was in Clark's class, I feel like he thought I was playing video games the entire time because I was just on the arrow ski the whole time, but I was cutting cards, Coach Clark. The third reason, there's not a third reason. Oh, okay. It was much better for Aura, but I guess it didn't go off. So the keyboard, the way you use it is that you use kind of shift and click. So if you like click the shift button and you use your arrow keys left, right, it will select my character, right? And then if you use control, then it will select my word, right? So it will like highlight that. And then you can decide which keys like use for underline and emphasize. I'm gonna post like an explanation of how to set that up on the YouTube channel. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Here's a demonstration. Yeah.
When you highlight, but you cut the card with the keyboard, do you also highlight with the keyboard?
I highlight with my mouse, which I don't know. I don't know. I've always done that. Yeah.
I also prefer my mouse.
So I have set my arrow keys for certain functions, but you only have 4 arrow keys, like.
Yeah. I use page up and page down, like for the underline and underline and emphasize. This is how fast you can get. Okay, the next thing is the process of creating your card. So the first thing you should do is copy in the site and the text. Sometimes if I don't think an article is going to pan out, I won't copy in the site because it's not worth doing that whole thing. But if I see a line in it when I'm like skimming it, then I'm like, okay, I'm definitely going to cut this and put the site in there already. You should clear all of the formatting from it. So you use that verbatim function to get rid of like any formatting. You should remove all hyperlinks before you cut it because it can mess up when you shrink. You should also maintain paragraph integrity. That's important for like evidence ethics because you don't want to like get rid of part of the paragraph. Also, just looks way prettier. I don't know why people would ever get rid of that. Just makes no sense. The second thing you should do after you put in the text is box and underline. You don't want to overbox or over underline. You want to get enough warrants out of the card without making it look disgustingly ugly. And the next thing you want to do is your tag. The tag should kind of like summarize the message of the card. It's an art of balance between brevity and depth, right? So you want to use as few words as possible while also making enough arguments and explaining the warrants in the card. You should like try to have some comparison in your tags, right? So like in the one I see, I always love having like a little line at the end that's like X thing doesn't solve, or like defense doesn't assume this thing, like that kind of stuff. You want to have like that little element of comparison in your cards because it kind of like is like a trigger word for the judge. The last thing is highlight. You should always highlight full sentences. If you don't, I'll delete the card from the Dropbox. Just highlight full sentences, please. please. Verbs, subjects, everything. And don't highlight the same word twice. A lot of authors are really bad writers, and they just like repeat the same sentence using a different way of explaining it, or a different way of phrasing it. So never highlight that twice if it already says it. So this is kind of like the structure of the NBA citations. So you have the first name, last name, then the year. Don't put the middle initial. No one wants to know that. Then you have their qualifications. They should be in a positive form. Never in a sentence. You don't want to just copy them from the website. That's lazy and not elegant. If there's a second author, I like putting them in bold just so like everyone knows. So like there's two authors on this article. Like it's better than your card. But you don't have to read that because that's dumb. If it's like multiple authors, then you should put et al. In bold and not write out every other author. This is my opinion. I think we should adopt this practice, but whatever. And then the dates, use slashes. It looks nicer than dashes. The title, make sure it's not in all caps. There's a function on verbatim to like, or on Word to make them like each word capitalized, not all the words. The URL should not be too long. A lot of URLs are really long. You gotta find a way to shorten it because those make the citation really ugly. And you should put your initials at the end. And don't make them ugly. Big picture, don't make anything ugly.
Retweeting the initials thing at the end. Coach Clark has stated a mandate that everyone must put the initials at the end of every card.
If you want an idea for your initials, you can ask me. I like.
Yeah, how do you make initials not ugly? Like they are what they are, right?
No, not like your initials. Like you're like.
Like your tag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Like Armax is a little ugly.
Armax is pretty cool. Yeah. Okay.
No, Armax is a little ugly, but
Armax is
it's
a little
Armax, you know. Arish?
Wait, when we have the second author, are we supposed to bold that?
I think you should.
Yeah, I like that. I started
Yeah.
doing that last year. I think just like so, you never need to say two names
Yeah.
out loud.
Yeah.
You should only ever say one name out loud, but you should have the other author. If there's only two there for context, and it's bolded so that it draws the eye to that part. But if there's like three or more authors, just name one and then say that all.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like they can see that there's other authors on it, but you don't have to say it, right? So I get props for them, but yeah, it doesn't waste time.
If there's like multiple authors, you still need to put all of them inside, right?
No, I don't think so. I think you can just put that out.
In actual academic writing, there's three or no, it's more than three authors you just put that out in
Yeah.
citation, so it's acceptable to do that.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I don't know. It's like also high school debate. No one even cares about balls. So, okay. For scholarly work, that should say scholarly. My bad. You should have the journal. It should be italicized. If it is from a book, the way that I like to do it is in quotations is the title of the chapter, and italics is the name of the book, and then instead of like volume, issue, number, page, it's what chapter number that is. And then I put like the ISBN at the end. So for journal articles, you should have like the volume and then in parentheses the issue with the number, or you can do like BOL period number, like NO period number if you want to do that. Page numbers, it should be like the page where the article is from, not where the card is from. So when I started researching, I thought you had to like tell everyone where like specific pages the card is from, like that you're cutting, and they have to like change it for every card you cut from like the same article, which took forever. But I now realize that it's just like where the article is from in the journal, if that makes sense.
I do ranges in journal articles, but if I cut a card from a book, I try to use
Oh really? Okay. Yeah.
It also in actual academic writing, you
Yeah.
put both the full page number of the well,
Yeah.
okay, you should do both.
Well, like footnotes, I feel like are different than like the bibliography or whatever.
Yeah,
Because it's like I don't know. I never do pages for books though. Maybe I should.
For debate reasons, excuse me, the reason that I make that differentiation is every journal article basically will be accessed electronically and you can control that for a part of the content to try to find. But like a book, like I still go to the NU library, check out actual books, and if I'm looking for some of these cards in that book, it's way more useful to have the page number to be
Yeah.
able to flip to where
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, that's true.
Those
Right.
are also different because people will oftentimes actually explain the argument they're trying to disprove in a book, and so it's useful to know what page numbers that's from for the purpose of us figuring out if you cut their actual argument or the thing that they're saying.
Yeah. 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 don't put like umich.edu / like the random thing because people who don't have access to that library can't use it. It's just like, please don't do that. It makes me sad.
Then you can put tnfonline.org as a citation. I will end you.
Also, I don't like when people just put like, I don't like, just put the DOI, please. It's really easy to find it. It's just like on the site. And sometimes they'll just have the numbers. So like you should just learn like that, right? Like you should learn how to type that in before you do the numbers.
And also, if you go to web pages that you shouldn't go to, like SciHub, and you just know what a DOI number is, you can just put the DOI number in SciHub.
Yeah.
And get the article.
Yeah. On those bad websites. Yeah. Okay, the final section of organizing files, we just have one slide because I think once you know these things, then you're pretty much good. But these are really important. So the first part of organizing a file is assembling all the cards you cut. So a lot of people have different strategies for organizing files, but you should kind of start developing your own organizational system for organizing cards. You can call it like, I don't know, like have a section of the file called like your cutting board. It's what Kabir likes to call it, which I kind of like. I don't know, like name it dumb stuff. And then have like a part where you're like putting it into actual like arguments, and you're like, okay, like this like answer to that, like blah blah blah. Use placeholder tags. So you can say like AT no solvency as your tag, and then you can kind of retag it based on the other cards you found, because you don't want your tags to just keep repeating themselves. Highlight deliberately. So we talked earlier about like within a card you don't want to repeat warrants. You also don't want to repeat warrants like within a file, right? So like if you're highlighting the exact same warrant in each card that you put in your file, like that's not efficient, right? And we want to be efficient. The final thing is that like at the end of each research session, you should think about what you're going to do next, what your file is missing, because that's really important for making like a robust file. You also want to finalize in your file production, so that means deciding what is in the 1NC, what is in the 1AC. You don't want to just put in the 1NC the first card you found, because it might not be the best. And then you want to like choose the evidence you read in the block in the 2AC later speeches based on what you choose in the 1NC or 1AC. And then at this point is when you kind of finalize those tags. And then the final thing is you want to like fill every hole that you think your file is missing. So we talked a lot earlier about like you don't want to kind of just give up and be like, okay, like my file looks good, like it's fine, we can just like submit it. You need to like fill in all those holes of arguments you know people will make, right? So especially if you're researching against the literature, because there's going to be a lot of arguments against your file, and you need to have answers to those. Yeah, don't avoid writing blocks you don't want to write. That's very important. Okay, any questions?